I'm retro. Let's get it. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. Yeah, it's lit in the chop shop. Turn your dials up in the drop top. They ain't based to debate, but they keep it fact straight. Going 30 for 30, let's do a first take. On Facebook Live from 12 to 2. Rob Hatter and Jim Hicks going back and forth like Carter Ray and Skip Bayless and Stephen Smith. From on the court, off the court, straight to the field. Not a man that steals, but I made it steal. To the octagon where I fight to kill. We go face to face, then you write your will. I don't play tennis, but I bring the racket. I'm on the floor, I attack the basket. Put you in the casket when I'm overlapping. Never showing mercy, cause I'm always snapping. Never showing mercy when I'm in the arena. Step into the ring, you see me as I beat him. Step into the court, I'm never backing down. Killing competition, I'm smacking down. Let me get back to the other stuff at the chop shop, cause they cutting up. It's retro, coming to you live to the chop shop. Now let's turn it up. Yeah, we in the chop shop, man. Shout out to Jim Hicks and Rob Hatter. You can catch the chop shop live from 12 to 2 on Facebook Live. Let's get it. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop.
H-Town, what's up? You know what time it is. It's time for the best 120 minutes of your day. The Chop Shop, the nation's #1 urban sports talk show, and also your midday sports happy hour. Yours truly, Robert Hatter, alongside Jim, the Cheat Sheet Hicks, coming to you live from Houston, Texas. But we're broadcasting all over the world simultaneously on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. It's a great day at sports today. We got two great, distinguished guests. I can't wait till these guests come on. But until they get here, given the circumstances, I just want to hope that everybody's doing well. I hope to see some, I just want to hope to see some of the protests die down, especially once we see people that are in charge of talking about these policies, and because that's what it's going to take. And when people in positions of power start really talking about changing these policies, I hope we get there. And we're going to have a real conversation today, and we're going to mix in some sports. And Jimmy, before we go in, I got a call from Sam Cassell this morning, and he said, don't forget to shout out Wes Unseld. He passed away today. A great man, played for the Washington Bullets. Jimmy, you can come up in the feed. You're a little bit low. You can come up in the feed. He passed away today. I think yesterday. And he was talking about, Robert, did you go back? Do you remember he was the king of the outlet pass? If you're not familiar with Wes Unseld, go back. He was a consummate. One of his greatest skills, other than being physically tough, was being a king of the outlet pass. So, I just wanted that to happen, to share that with you. Jimmy, what else we got going on in sports today, man? What you got?
There's a lot out there today, and of course we're gonna help enlighten you, entertain you, encourage you, inform you on a lot of topics. Shout out to a lot of our viewers right now. We're streaming live, of course, as you just mentioned, Facebook and YouTube. If you're on YouTube right now, give us a thumbs up. If you're on the Facebook feed, you can take out the time to share the show with your group, basketball groups, your sports groups, your timelines, your friends. I see you out there. I see you, Michael Smith, with the Robert Horry Sports Medicine and Rehab on the feed right now. I see Coach Larry Cordero the multi-time national coach of the year in the NAIA ranks down at LSU Alexandria. I see you down there. I see you, Chris O'Neal. I see you, Chris Charles. Shout out to all you guys up in there, got in there early. Rick Timms, who got put in Facebook jail again. But now he's on the YouTube. That's one of the benefits of having the YouTube page. And but we get right into it. Of course, coming up at 1:30, we expect to be joined by USA basketball coach Don Showalter. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. John, don't come on first.
No. First, I got my East Coast and my Central Time mixed up.
I know it.
First, we're going to be joined by Jeff Capel of University of Pittsburgh, the head coach, and he's going to join us first, coming up shortly in about 12, 13 minutes.
Yeah. And
we're going to have a great convo with him, and he'll be followed by Don Showalter, and it's going to be a hell of a powerful conversation as far as just a lot of your questions about USA basketball. Both of these gentlemen, they are no strangers to the Chop Shop. They've been with us before, but guess what? That don't mean you were watching the Chop Shop when they were here before. So a lot of the things that people may not understand, and we'll talk about recruiting. We'll talk about what coaches are doing now, what's the plans forthcoming with their various entities, and also we cannot avoid the elephant in the room, and that is the social injustice issues. Just as everything that goes up under that umbrella. So now we noticed today. Here's one on a disclaimer. I want to start off with, speaking of the topic. I noticed I got an email today, and there was a high school coach who wanted me to get on the athletic directors of the high school ranks around Greater Houston and Texas for being silent or not saying anything. And here's my take on it. At a certain point, if you have to make somebody do something, then are they really doing it with their heart? You know what I'm saying? If you have to shame them into doing it, and follow me now, then is that really what you want? Or what you, and that's the question I have to ask you guys. It's like, you want some guys, you want some people out there, basketball coaches and basketball parents. Well, we don't hear nothing from the athletic directors. We don't hear nothing from the high school coaches. Well, all eggs don't hatch on the same day. And I've said this over and over and over again. Give some people time. Some people have to really navigating through this stuff for the first time probably in some people's life to even try to understand what some black people may be going through. They may have thought, and I said it before, some people may have thought that they knew because some of my best friends are black. I played with some people that's black. I worked with one that's black. And of course, throughout the years, you probably think that you know how they tick. And likewise with us. We probably think we know how they tick. And some things we really want to understand this stuff is not going to be just add water, stir and sip for the healing and for understanding. That's the first part. They have to be able to understand us. Otherwise, they'll say, okay, well, man, I'm sorry for y'all. I feel for y'all. I'll go out here and walk down the street with you and march with you and protest with you. But still, that don't mean they understand how you get what's inside, what's paining you. So I just wanted to get that out there first.
Yeah, and I wanted to share some about, because I've been seeing some tweets by, certain people and professional teams and people here. They saying, Michael Jordan do a tweet, Tiger Woods do a tweet, people debating about their tweets. But what I hope is people are now, and I just really hope they're now awake to the horrible institution, no racism that is a problem that needs to be fixed now. It's urgent, y'all. This is something that you just can't keep putting off. You know, your actions are what I want to see from these people now, not just a tweet. You can put out any statement that you're representing this league, you're representing that league or any organization. But going forward, my question is, what are you gonna do? That's the question, and it is sometimes it is something that is going to have to continue to grip this entire nation, man. I just want what's next. What's next? Let's not leave. Let's not just make this a moment. Let's make this a movement. See, moments we forget about. But the difference in a moment and a movement is sacrifice. So it's some things just have to be sacrificed for this thing. And guess what? On the other side, all of us will be better for it. On the other side. So I mean, so Jimmy, I just wanted to tack that into you because I've been seeing it. Everybody announcing their thing, everybody tweeting out. Let's stop tweeting and let's start doing. Maybe that's what I wanted to say. What else you got, Jim?
And also in basketball news, once again, coming up, you just tuned to the Chop Shop. Coming up, we're going to have a pair of guests today. And coming up in about 8 minutes, will be our first guest. And that'll be head coach of Pitt at basketball. And that's Jeff Capel. And you guys, yes, surely remember him. And great presence and a great individual and head coach he is. What you had, Adam?
I got one more thing. Coach coming on shortly. I want to take a special shout out. It's so cool to see these college athletes speaking out, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. And we got a college coach coming up. These young people realize they have a platform to be heard and affect meaningful change. These young men are from Ohio State. Jimmy, I got to play. It's so encouraging. I got to play this from him. It's a little short thing before Coach, because Coach going to come in and Coach can probably chime him in. But these young men did I put it in here? These young men from Ohio State, I didn't load the video up. But
go find the video and I'll bring up some.
Bring up some. Okay, all right. And
it was, of course, also on yesterday, and I see a lot of guys in the feed. I see Dale Griggs. I see you, Frank Owens. Herb Ladee is up in there. I see you, Melvin Dews. Shout out to all you guys. But on yesterday, it was, I guess, shocking news to many that the top ranked rising junior in the area, Bryce Griggs, put out a post on social media, which insinuated that he was in another uniform and a school in, of course, San Diego. And the thing is, a lot of people ran with that and took it and went to running with that news and to clarify. And guess what? The element of surprise surely worked. And yesterday evening, Adam Coleman from the Houston Chronicle pinned the article, spoke with the family, and did confirm that plans that they are in the process of completing the paperwork for a transfer. Bryce Griggs went to Hightower High School. He averaged right at 25 points a game, 4.5 assists a game, led the team to back-to-back regional appearances, went to the state tournament this year, and of course, which was eventually canceled as a result of the pandemic. And so once again, Bryce Griggs, it appears that that all signs point towards him possibly leaving Hightower High School for San Ysidro High School in San Diego. And this move right here, once again, it was shocking to most. It was definitely fun watching Bryce Griggs, and he was right at the point where remember I mentioned the Gator analogy yesterday, where the water started to boil, and his water had started to boil as far as being a presence nationwide. As after this sophomore season, people were so anxious to see him in the state tournament, who had yet to see this young phenom from the area. So I want to give once again, now he will be on the West Coast, and it's going to be intriguing to see for the next 2 years. He's a rising junior. So we that's want to give our congratulations to the Griggs family. You have to realize a young man who lost his father to cancer, Bryce Griggs did just a little bit over a year ago. And it's not an easy task being able to maneuver through the vigors of life and going into celebrity status. You got to realize people in Houston knew him, people in Texas knew him, but then to become, you're wrestling with this and going through the hurdles of becoming that celebrity mega star in basketball on the local platform. So that's what he had become in Houston. He was the Tommy Mason Griffin. He was the De'Aaron Fox. He was the how would I say, the guy before him? He was the Nick Wise. He was the Jay Lucas. He was the BJ Holmes. He was the Daniel Gibson, the Tag Minor. He was next in line of those guards, regardless of what they ended up doing in life. But as far on the high school level, so that's why it takes a community. He had earned it the hard way by overcoming barriers. So now, guess what, guys? He's not the first to leave and transfer schools, and won't be the last. All we do now is look at him and applaud. And guess what? It works for some people. It worked back in 2010, summer 2010, when Kelly Oubre decided to leave Bush High School alongside Cameron Ridley and go to Finley Prep. It worked great for him. It worked for a lot of kids. So let's see how this plays out. And anyway, now all signs are just unfortunate for a coach like Coach Woods, Stephen Woods at Hightower High School. Now the whole dynamic of your season and your ideology and probably your offensive schemes have to change a great deal, probably minus the possibly minus Bryce Griggs. So I want to get that in. Did you find that video, Al? You ready?
Muted, Jimmy. I'm sorry. Oh, now I'm back. Uh, I know they were about to go crazy. Well, what I would like to say, uh, congratulations to Bryce. It's a young man, and I would ask the question of y'all: what would you do? What would you do if you was a young man and you got a chance to go play with people that want you? And people that likes that like you get a chance to go to California. You're being around a guy that you really feel. I mean, my question would be to you: what would you do? A guy that feel like he look at the young kid in the 10th grade, Jeff Capel, and coach. I know y'all in the wings, but he looked at his city and he looked in the Guy V. Lewis Award. He felt he should have won that award. A kid but he didn't understand the parameters of it, but he felt he should have won it. We got a magazine that Jimmy brings out every year. We had 6 guys on the cover. Guess what? Those guys, he felt he was better than those guys. And then he the number one guy in the city, but people not even feel he number 2 or 3 in the state. And sometimes y'all got to realize he's a 16-year-old boy who Jimmy so eloquent said lost his dad. So when kids lose a loved one, what they want to be loved. And I don't know. I know how I felt about him, and I know how his family felt about him. But the young kid, he just want to explore his opportunities, and he got the chance. everybody don't get this chance. And he at least owe it to himself to go and explore any opportunity that's going to make him better and put. Guess what? Bryce feels that he is one of the top players in the country. But guess what? Maybe the local media didn't get with the national media, and maybe they didn't agree. So I don't know what happened. I just know the young man is happy and he's smiling every day right now. And guess what? Houston, show him love. He ain't gone yet. Show him love. That's all I can tell y'all. Show him some love. So, Jimmy, if you want to bring our guest in, hey, you want to bring our guest in, because we could talk about this all day. But and I hate I was muted earlier.
It's that time right now, and of course we step right up to the plate. And I want to give you the disclaimer, guys, so you understand that the conversation, we will table it right now because NCAA guidelines restrict college coaches from speaking about prospects who have yet to sign scholarship papers or letters of intent. So that's the disclaimer. So therefore, we cannot proceed with that topic into this territory. Now, what I'm bringing to the screen right now for you guys is, of course, famed college coach and a very recognizable, and the guy that's definitely you could tell if you ever get the chance to meet him, or just go and search on social media and find one of his videos of him speaking. You can tell it's coming definitely from inside of his chest and from from the heart. And that is Jeff Capel with Pitt basketball. He's the head coach, guys. Shout out, welcome to the Chop Shop, Coach.
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
All right, Coach. Let me click you in there, Coach. Wow, got you in there now.
Coach, man, we get right into it. Of course, first of all, I want to ask you, what are you guys doing at the program right now during the pandemic? When do the players report back? What's the plan?
Yeah, we'll be able to get our guys on June 29th. And it's going to be great. We haven't seen them since the second week in March. We actually played the last game in the NC. We lost to NC State in the ACC tournament. And then the very next day, everything was canceled. Everything was shut down. And so we haven't seen our guys since then. They've been gone. They've been at home. Fortunately, they're safe. They're healthy. Their families are doing well. We Zoom meet every week just to check in with them. We've tried to give them to do some workouts while they're at home. But it'll be great to get them back.
And, of course, June 28th. And then so now, What restrictions would it be in place once the kids do get back, like living conditions? That's a lot of things. I mean, how does that work? Because or is it business as usual?
No, it's not. So when they get back, they'll be quarantined initially. That's the very first thing. They'll have to fill out a questionnaire about, where they've been, have they traveled, who they've been around and things like that. We have 4 guys from the state of New York, 3 guys right in the city. And so there's a chance that those guys may be tested right away. And each kid will have an opportunity. They can choose. They can get tested. They can not get tested. They can get a COVID test, or they could get a COVID and antibody test. And so we'll do that. Again, they'll still be quarantined for about 10 days to 2 weeks. And then after that time period's over with, then we can start working with them, us as coaches and our strength coach in small groups.
And so now, going into the season, will there be a basketball season on time this year?
Yeah, that's something I still think people are trying to figure out. I don't think anyone has a definitive answer. We want it. Everyone wants college athletics back. Everyone wants sport back, period. But the main thing has to be, what's the best thing for these student athletes? These are not professional athletes. They're not getting paid. This is not their job. And so we have to adhere to what's the best thing for them. We need to treat them like they are students instead of just thinking of them as athletes. And so whatever's best for them, for their health and for their well-being, that's what we have to do.
Coach, I like this. Where are they staying, Coach? Where would they be quarantined at? In the dorms?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we did and we fought for when I took the job here, and last season was last year, this past academic year, which was my second year, was the first time we moved all of our guys to apartments. There were brand new apartments built here, and all of our guys live there. And then some of our upperclassmen live off campus. All the apartments, are 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, but each bedroom has their own bathroom. And so we'll be able to do that. It's obviously no one planned for a pandemic, but it works out perfectly for us. So you don't have to have a dorm and a kind of a community bathroom. And so that really helps out.
And so now, Coach, you mentioned a while ago about the student athletes. They're not pros. Tell us your take on the name, image, likeness conversation.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out more. I do think and understand, why people are looking at it and why it needs to be looked at. I do think that there are things that, can be done to be able to provide these young people more. They are able to get a lot right now. In 2014, Shabazz Napier, stood up on that stage at the Final Four, and he talked about how they were hungry. They went to bed hungry and things like that. And from that moment, the NCAA changed a lot of things. But we still need to continue to adapt. I don't know everything that it means right now. I can tell you guys from experience as a player, and that was a long time ago, but when I played my sophomore year and on, sophomore, junior, senior year, my jersey was being sold in the bookstore. When you went into a Duke bookstore or a mall, in Durham or in North Carolina, and they sold the Duke jersey, it was a number 5. And always, even back then, from 19 years old to 22 years old, I thought if something was odd about that can be in a store and all these people are making money. If I wanted to buy it for my younger brother or for my cousins or things like that, I had to buy it. If they gave it to me, from our equipment room, that was a violation. And so I do think there are things that can be done to continue to help. But I think you got to be really careful, man. You guys know, like I do as an adult, Coach Showalter knows this, and any adult knows this. When you have money, that brings different problems. And so I think we need to educate these kids. I don't think you just need to give it. I think you need to educate them on how to handle money, how to take care of money, and how to utilize money.
And what age should that start at?
I think it should be part of a curriculum in high school. I think certainly when you go to college. One of the things when I was in college, and Jim, you know me, I'm an open book, man. I don't pull any punches. I don't believe in coach speak. When I was a college student, I'd probably say, man, about 80 to 90% of the classes I took, a lot of times I was in there like, why am I taking this? Like, I'll never use this again. Okay. I think there need to be things in curriculum for college students, not just student athletes, but college students on these topics, how to handle money, how to take care of things, how to, bank account, investments, different things like that. Because a lot of people in my community, in our community, they don't grow up with that knowledge. Look, I grew up in a 2-parent household. My parents, we were, I guess, lower middle class to middle class. We never had discussions about that. We never had conversations about money, about investments, about how to take care of money and things like that. So I do think that that's something that universities should teach, because every student will have to deal with that at some point, especially student athletes.
Do you think that you mentioned that part about the economics? Is that more basketball players in general, or are you talking about more the black basketball players?
I think it's more basketball players. Listen, I think even white players and I think it's everything. I think it's everyone. I think everyone needs to learn about that. Again, I don't know how many families, when a kid is, 15 to 18 years old, which is usually their high school years, I don't know how many families sit around at a table and talk about money, talk about investments, talk about different things. Maybe if your parent, is an investment banker or is in banking or in something like that, maybe you do. But I think it's something that really, I think all athletes need to talk about, but certainly the black student athlete, that's something. Look, we've seen so many horror stories about these kids that go to the NBA or they make it or they're playing overseas and then they end up broke because they don't understand how to take care of their money. And what ends up happening is that then they hire someone to take care, and they hire someone that they think that they trust, and that person ends up robbing them, ends up taking advantage of them. And so I think there needs to be education on this. And I think now's the perfect time as we get ready to head into this name, image, and likeness, and it's going to pass. We don't know all the things that will happen with it, but I think part of doing that needs to be an education about money, about how to take care of money, how to handle money, and things like that.
But Coach, that should have been in place anyway, don't you think?
Absolutely, it should have been put. There are a lot of things that should have been in place. Listen,
Okay.
I think the NCAA does some really good things and has done some really good things, but I think one of the major flaws of the NCAA has been its willingness to adapt and understand that you have to adapt and adapt with the times. These aren't the 80s anymore. These aren't the 90s back when I played. These aren't the early 2000s or whatever. It's a completely different time. And I think when you look at most businesses that are able to have sustained success, I think one of the reasons is their willingness and their ability to adapt. Most programs, most coaches, most anyone that's able to have sustained success, you may have a standard or you may have the way you do things, but you also have to understand that you have to adapt and you have to be willing to adapt. And I think that's something that the NCAA has failed at over the years.
Maybe you help me here. I thought the NCAA was just the enforcement arm. Why hadn't the universities or the universities presidents? Because tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not an expert on NCAA, but I thought they just enforced the rules.
Yeah.
So if they are to enforce the rules, that wouldn't be their responsibility to educate our guys on financial literacy. That should come. Maybe I'm wrong. Shouldn't that come from either the AD, since it's the athletes we're talking about, or the school president?
Yeah, it absolutely should. It's not mandated by the NCAA. I just think, the name, image, and likeness and some of these things that have come up, like, again, it took Shabazz Napier in 2014 to get up there and say that. And college coaches had been talking about that for a while, that this should happen.
Right.
I do think that it should come from the university level, from an athletic department. It could come from a league. I was on a podcast yesterday talking about all the racial stuff. And one of the things I found fascinating was I was on there with the athletic director from the University of Minnesota. And he talked about they have a new commissioner and what that commissioner has been on the job for 6 months and what that commissioner has walked into, a pandemic. And now this stuff that's going on, with George Floyd and what's going on in our country. One of the things that he said that I thought was fascinating and brilliant was their commissioner, when their commissioner took over the Big Ten, he made it a point to all the athletic directors that he wanted to get every school to get their student athletes registered to vote. I think that's a brilliant thing.
Awesome.
I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. I think it's powerful. And so it should come from whether a conference, an athletic director, or a university. That's something I think that should be mandated, is financial literacy.
And I mean, indeed, man, well said, Coach, about that. And, it's a lot of people know you see the end of the road coming for some people. And I look at it and I give the analogy back, when you have kids, if you give a kid back, even, not a little kid, but in middle-aged kid, give them $1, they go to the corner store. So some kids are going to buy a pack of Now and Laters, some cookies and a juice, and they're going to keep a quarter in their pocket or put it in their sock or the bottom of their shoe. Some kids going to bust that whole $1 up and have to look on the floor for a penny to get the tax and put up there. I mean, it's just, you could see it coming, the way that the elements of saving. And I think that's to not left unsaid is explaining to people why, or teaching them to save, just like the Kool-Aid mentality. Back in the old days, you make a fresh pitcher of Kool-Aid, and it's in some houses, it seemed like they can't wait. Everybody want to get a full cup. And that last person will get a full cup and leave a little corner of Kool-Aid and put it back in the refrigerator, not understanding the whole element of it. It's just the greed part and not understanding what it could do for you. But now I want to move on and want to ask you, A lot of the coach, we got a couple of questions in the boom boom room. Don't let them go too fast.
Hey, coach don't know who the boom boom room. He might have forgot what the boom boom room.
I know.
Oh yeah,
the boom boom room for those first timers. That's the message boards on our Facebook and our YouTube pages right now. We're streaming live simultaneously, and so feel free to present your questions on there right now. And first we'll go. I get his first one right now. Give it to Coach Marcus Ebo and shoot him out there. And he says, what are you telling your players at this time in regards to the current racial tension?
Yeah, so we have a Zoom meeting every week, and we normally do it on Wednesday. And last Wednesday we did it, and we talked about kind of what's going on. And it was, kind of an open book. Look, this isn't something we do just because of what's going on right now. We talk about social issues with our guys all the time. We talk about what's going on with the world. A big thing for me when I became a head coach, and it started when I was at VCU, is I want these young men to understand that they're more than just basketball players. A lot of times basketball players, or athletes, I should say, you only see yourself through that lens. And I want them to understand they're more. And so to be involved, to understand what's going on. And so last Wednesday, it was just a conversation about, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I think about it. These are my feelings. And I was very open with them. And we talked about a little bit about their feelings. And then we had another Zoom yesterday. We didn't wait because obviously what's happened in the past week has been very emotional. And, throughout the week, I'm talking to my guys individually, calling them, FaceTiming them, checking in. I have guys calling me, Coach, I want to go out and protest. I want to go to this rally. What do you think? Should I go? And things like that. And so the one yesterday was getting how they feel individually and collectively. We had a couple of people on from the university level, a guy that's in charge of the Center for Diversity and a guy that runs our life skill programs, two men that are really, really good men, really good examples and have a passion for young people. They were both former student athletes. And it was very emotional. It was very, very emotional. It was insightful for me. Again, I have conversations with these guys all the time. And so once we finished that, then it was, okay, what do we want to do about it now? And so one of the things our guys wanted to do was to put out a statement from our team, from our program. And they wrote it and we released it today. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful. I was really proud of their words. They put thought into it. They did it together. And it's basically talking about what they feel as young Black men and as student athletes at Pitt. One of the things we talked to them about is that they have a voice. They actually have a really powerful voice, but they need to use it. They don't need to sit back. And one of my guys, last night after doing that, I didn't know that he did it. He sent an email to our athletic director. He sent an email to our university chancellor, imploring them to speak out on behalf of the student athletes.
Coach, that's so unique. You said that. I got a question, Coach. Are all of your players Black? You have one white guy?
All of my returning guys, yeah. All of our guys, all of our guys are Black, yeah.
Coach, you mean tell me you ain't got your walk-ons Black?
We have one. We just got one walk-on. That's a white kid.
But Coach, let me show you something so unique in what you did yesterday. I was blessed last night to be invited on a Zoom call. Okay, Zoom call with T.J. Ford. Okay. T.J. Ford had a Zoom call. He had Royale Ivey, NBA head coach, but he had all of his young kids in the program, white, Black, everybody on the program in the call. And we got a chance to listen to those kids. Let me tell y'all something. This world is going to be in a better place. It might take us to get our old butt out the way. But this world, I just listened to one of the little kids, and it's still sticking in my heart. One of the little kids said, "Well, Coach DJ, well, my dad's Black and my mom's white. I don't know what to think."
Wow.
Jimmy, it broke my heart. Our kids shouldn't have to live in fear like this, man.
Yeah.
Jeff, and I just told TJ, he called me after. I said, man, I don't know. I don't know why you brought me on this thing, but it was one of the most powerful calls that I've been on in this pandemic. I got to see young Andrew Jones, one of the kid who recovered from cancer. Oh, he gonna be something, y'all. I'm just telling y'all, he gonna do something. Frank Iheanacho, former football player at A&M. All of these guys are former guys under his influence. This Zoom call, I just like to take a shout out to you, Coach, and to TJ Ford. Y'all thinking alike. He did it with his summer program, Coach.
Awesome, man.
Unbelievable. Coach,
Go. I was going to say, one of the things we need to do is listen. And again, you'll be amazed at what these young people think. I'll tell you a quick story. So the other day, my wife went upstairs and, at our house, and our oldest is 13, my daughter. Mm-hmm. She just turned 13 in late April. And she's like me. She's reserved. You kind of don't know what she's thinking or feeling or things like that. Right. And my wife went up to the laundry room to do something. Her bedroom's upstairs. And then she went back. My wife has a little craft room up there. And so she went in there just to see if it was clean. Uh-huh. And she found this thing. And my daughter, my 13-year-old, had painted this picture. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a beautiful picture. She had drawn and painted this picture of of a black fist.
Really?
And around it, it's outlined in red. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at it like, wow, like she brings it down. Like, did you see what Cameron did? Like, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And I'm looking at it closely, mm-hmm. and really faint in the red around the border. Mm-hmm. She's written every name of a black person killed by cops.
Wow. How old is she, Jeff?
She's 13. She's 13. And again, she doesn't talk about this stuff. And so I get it. And I go talk to her, and I'm talking to her. This is my 13-year-old daughter. And she's telling me how angry she is, how she's afraid, how she doesn't understand. She can't believe what she's seeing and what's going on and things like that. And so that's why I think it's really important for us as adults, as leaders, as teachers, as coaches, to listen, to give these kids an outlet and let them know that it's okay to talk. It's okay to feel. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be angry, but teach them how to channel it, how to use it, and how to utilize it. And Rob, just like you said, I told our guys on the call yesterday, like on our Zoom, they are going to be the ones to affect change.
Yes.
And I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
We're in a really good place because they feel it. And the other thing that I told our guys, I think the thing that's probably most important, it's not just them that feel it. It's young white people that feel it. They feel it. And that's where, to me, the change is going to come.
Yes. Yes.
So how important do you feel that it is for, at this time, right now, for a lot of blacks to dialogue with some of their white friends and allies to have some conversations?
I think it's huge, Jim. I think it's huge, man, because to me, this is not our problem. We're part of the problem, but it's not our problem.
Right.
And it's something that it's something that's really broken in this country. Mm-hmm. Two of my really close friends, two of my best friends, one's the head coach at Northwestern, Chris Collins. Mm-hmm. One's the head coach at Marquette, Steve Wojciechowski.
Yeah.
Both were my backcourt mates. Both of those guys wanted to release statements. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys called me. What do I say? What do I say to my what do I say to my black players? How do I help them? They both sent me their statements. What do you think about this? Is it good? What should I change? And things like that. And so here's what I think. And again, I could be in the minority, but that's okay. This is what I think.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of good people out there, black and white.
Yes.
I think there are people that want to help. I think one of the things right now is that I think there are a lot of white people that don't know how. They don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the most important things is that you have to have tough conversations, and they have to be willing to listen,
right,
to take it to heart. They have to be able to feel. And then the thing that I've shared with them, those are two that have I've had a lot that have contacted me and wanted to have this conversation. Then they need to step up. They need to stand out. If they see injustice, if they see one of their friends or family members doing something, saying something that's not right, they need to call them out. That's how you change this. They need to call them out.
Jeff, I saw something and maybe we can get something that can help them, because it's got to be from them. And I love that, because I remember y'all in the backcourt how close y'all were and are. But Jeff, I looked at some numbers, Jeff, the other day, and tell my friends, just listen. The number of protesters that were arrested, okay? I went and got some numbers. 4,100 plus, okay? Number of protesters were arrested. The number of arrests for murdering George Floyd, 1 out of 4, okay? The number of Wall Street executives arrested for the mortgage fraud during the financial crisis in 2008 that hurt a lot of us, 0. Let me repeat that. I don't want that to seep back, because people just forget about that. The number of Wall Street executives arrested for mortgage fraud during the financial crisis, 0. The number of Americans who lost their jobs during this COVID-19, 40 million. No justice, no peace. This is the system that these people are out there. Yes, it's about George Floyd. Yes, and see, we got to keep forgetting, can't forget about Breonna Taylor.
And there were no cops arrested for that.
No cops arrested from there. She in her bed, minding her business.
Yeah.
She wasn't resisting. She didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
So we have to, Coach, those numbers, this is why people are out there.
Yeah.
It's bigger. Dude, it's bigger than you and me. Like they say, it's bigger than me and Nemo Brown. It's bigger than me and Nemo Brown.
Also, when you think about it, like if you think about this, you know, you had the whole, well, I shouldn't say you had, past tense. We have the whole COVID pandemic going on.
Yes.
During that time, you didn't see curfews. You didn't see, you know, things like that. And now you have people out protesting the injustices of police brutality, and you're making them go in. They're curfews. They're getting them off the streets. They're doing these things. And so it's all these things that are going on that we need to wake up. America needs to wake up and see, and there has to be a change. But the thing that we need to understand is that it's like I told my team, since I've been here, because we're trying to rebuild this program here. In order to do it, we need everybody, and we need everybody all in. The thing I constantly tell my team is we have to understand how much we need each other in order to be a really good team. The really good teams and the really good programs understand that the championship teams on any level, as Coach Showalter built USA Basketball, you know, the youth division, that's what he did. He implemented a program, and each team they have, there may be some different guys, but they understand how much they need each other. America, that's what we need to understand right now, how much we need each other. We need to listen, we need to be there for each other, and we need to fight for each other. And right now, a lot of people need to fight for us.
Yes. Earlier you mentioned two of your former backcourt mates at Duke, head coaches, reached out to you to have a conversation. And the conversation can be in various topics, but to have the conversation. And these were also guys that were on the bench with you at Duke, I think one or two of them,
both of them,
as assistant coaches. Now, here's my question to you. Do you think, first is twofold, how important is it right now for white basketball head coaches to come out and speak against this with sincerity? And do you think that a lot of coaches will get punished in their efforts to recruit Black kids as a result of their silence?
So that's a great question. That's a great question, both of them. You know, I'll address the front, the first one first. The thing that I will say to that is, how do they speak out? Like, do they speak out on social media? Do they speak out by releasing a statement? Like, how do you speak out? Because there may be some coaches that don't have social media, don't believe in it, they don't use it, they don't utilize it. Because you haven't heard them doesn't mean that they haven't spoken out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were some coaches that just came out with a statement maybe in the last couple of days, some white coaches. I know they were feeling it because I've had conversations with them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and things like that. And so, and that's not just white coaches, that's black coaches, that's coaches in general. In saying that, I do think that people are watching. I think that young kids are watching. I think that parents are watching. And so it would behoove them to do that, to, you know, to put something out, to communicate in some way. You know, again, one of the things that was fascinating to me, which I didn't know when I spoke to my team yesterday, is just how much they noticed of who hasn't said anything, whether it's at the university level, the national level, and things like that. That came up organically is something that they brought up. I was surprised by it, to be honest with you. And so, I'm not one because, you know, Jim, Rob, like sometimes, man, these coaches are putting stuff out. They may not have written it. Somebody put it out for them. And so to me, it's about action. It's not just about words. Words are cool.
Okay.
A statement's cool.
Yes.
A graphic, you put something out.
Yes.
You know, seen some coaches quote Dr. King and things like that. But the action behind it, that's the most important thing.
Man, powerful, man. Powerful. And you know, I mean, now I want to ask you, for the young people out there that are watching, if and student athletes, that is, and the parents, would you encourage them to ask or to go and do homework to see if that head coach or assistant coach or staff, their stance on certain things they believe in? Would you encourage them to go do their homework? And if so, how can they become more informed of the people who they invite into their living room? And you're you're more concerned with if he's going to like your pasta or not.
I would encourage them if it's something that's important to them. You know, look, man, let's be honest. Like, there's some kids, all they care about is who can get them to the league. That's just being real. And so I would encourage them if it's something that's important to them. I would encourage them to ask questions. You know, they can go on a social media. They can ask the coach if the coach calls. They can ask an assistant. They can ask guys like you. You guys know the college basketball world. They can ask some of the OGs, their AAU coach or their high school coach, and just see. They can ask the question. Their parents can ask, you know, they can ask the question. The kid to the coach themselves, you know, why didn't you do it? I didn't see, you know, that you did anything. Did you do something? Is it something that I didn't know about? Why didn't you take a stance publicly? I absolutely think that they should if it's something that's important to them.
Coach, I got a question because we got somebody on this Facebook feed. He want me to ask you a question. What did your football coach do?
I never played football.
No, I'm talking about I guess the Pittsburgh football coach. Did he get into some kind of controversy or something?
Not that I know of. He's a good dude, so not that I know of.
Well, see, this guy, he giving me incomplete information, talking about he done sent the link, and I have no idea. He talking about of a football player. What football player are you talking about? What football coach are you talking about? Just be a little more clear. Y'all, first of all, on the Facebook, on the YouTube feed, y'all, we have a lot of comments coming in. We don't see every comment. So help us. You might have to send the comment. If it's that important, send it again. So, Jimmy, what else you got for Coach? Coach, Coach,
man. I mean,
I had a good question for you, Coach. He done messed it up. What you got?
Being the fact that you've already acknowledged, you've had conversations with white people about this topic, about what's going on in society now, and give us some tips on how to break the ice, because everybody don't know how. You've already established that many white people don't know how to have that conversation, because a lot of times we learned yesterday, we had Peter Sweatham join us, and he was white, gave some great insight as coming from a white perspective. And the thing is, he learned, he says, if you're trying to, Peter mentioned, if you're trying to convince them out the back, and if you're raising your voice and you're attacking them, then they're going to shut down. And so a lot of people, black folk, really don't know how to get into this conversation. It's kind of like going in this race stuff is right there with politics and religion. It's right. It may be worse if you really get black and white. I'm just telling you, the conversation. And so how do you give us some tips on how you're able to sustain a positive dialogue without a person running the thermostat hot?
You know, look, it can get very emotional because it's a very sensitive topic, and it's a topic that can be very uncomfortable. But I think in order for change to happen, there needs to be these uncomfortable conversations, and there need to be confrontations. Look, nothing changes if you're comfortable. Nothing does. And that's in life in general. Like if you're trying to lose weight, you know, it's uncomfortable initially, you know, changing your diet or working out and things like that. So you have to be able to push through. You know, what I've tried to do is to be real. I don't try to force it on anyone. That's the very first thing. I don't try to force it. You know, if they come to me and they ask and they want to have a serious dialogue, then it's something that I have no problem talking to them about. I have no problem sharing. You know, one of the things that I think we as Black people, you know, get annoyed by is when they're trying to tell us, well, I think this, well, all lives matter, or you're trying to tell me. I saw a great thing on social media where one of Dr. King's daughters, you know, put out something.
Yes.
You know, like a quote that her dad said, and then you had all these people comment, and there were white people like, your dad didn't mean that. That's what he. Like, how do you know what my dad meant? Like, how are you going to tell me what my dad meant, and things like that? So that's another thing where they're at times trying to tell. So I think it's important to listen, but both sides have to listen. That's what I think. Like we can't think that we know it all either. I think you have to be open. I think you have to be honest. I think you have to have compassion for both sides. And it just needs to be truthful dialogue and understanding that it could be uncomfortable. But if you have a true friendship, then there's a connection there. Yes. And that connection and that love for each other and genuine care will go beyond that.
Coach, what role can sports play in this? You know, what role can sports, I mean, because people look up to sports. Like I'm in the arena cheering for Pittsburgh. I might be next to the KKK guy and the swastika guy and everybody, but we all cheering for Pittsburgh. You follow me?
Yeah.
But the problem is when we get outside, you know, we go three different ways. And what role, and then, and somebody mentioned something to me, and I'm gonna give you a couple of part questions. They talked about white silence is violence. They mentioned that. Then they mentioned Jalen Rose mentioned, I wish they loved us like they love our culture.
Yeah.
Right? So, and what we have to realize, Jimmy, what I've learned, if I've been in a privileged position for so long, Jeff, man, it might be hard for me to come out of my privilege. How do I get these guys to come out of? See, that's what we telling people. Now, that's what we got to realize. If we need white people's help, we got to realize they coming from a privileged position. So the number one thing I want to ask you is about what role can sports play in it? What role?
I think sports can play a huge role. I think if you look throughout history, sports has always played a huge role in racial relations. I think specifically basketball. You know, if you go back and you look, you know, some white people, their first interaction with the Black person has been through basketball, has been being a teammate, playing against, getting to know. And so that can help break down stereotypes. That can help break down these preconceived notions that we have. You know, my wife and I talk about this all the time. It was interesting the other day, I think it was over the weekend, maybe Saturday or Sunday, the movie 42 was on. The movie on Jackie Robinson. And it was interesting watching that now with what's going on in the country. And and just, how he broke into and how he changed people's perception of black people, black men, and things like that. So I think it plays a huge role. I remember having a conversation, and Coach Showalter knows this guy because he coached him, but Jabari Parker came to us when he was a freshman at Duke, and it was the summer. So he had been in summer school for about 2 weeks, and he comes to my office one day, and we're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden he says to me, and I never thought about this. When we recruited him, I never thought about this, but he's sitting there and he's talking to me, and he's like, Kate, man, it's interesting, white people think that we all look alike. Like, that's what you've always heard. He was like, this is the first time I've ever been in school with a white person. And I thought about that, like all throughout. He was south side of Chicago, elementary school, middle school, high school. He's never been in school with a white person. And so how different that was, for him. And so I think sports plays a huge role into it. I really, really do, because, when you're a teammate, man, you don't look at color. Like, see Chris Collins, Woj, all those guys, I didn't see color. Those guys were my brothers, man. And I think they felt the same way about me. And when you can play, when you can hoop, when you're a part of something, man, like, color goes out the window. Like, you just don't think about it unless a situation like this comes up.
Yeah. You see it, you just don't think about it.
You
That's
don't-
unique that you said what you said. I'm going to show you something that happened. Up until a couple of years ago, grown man now, I went to a predominantly white school in Memphis, Tennessee, okay? But I've never, Jeff, until a couple of years ago, I went to Austin and hung out with some friends in Austin, and I stayed over this guy's house. It's the first time in my entire life that I ever stayed at a white person's house before.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
I didn't think about it. Now, my son, Jeff, on the contrary, he graduated, went to Cornell, played basketball at Cornell. He lived the predominant, all of his friends in that sphere of influence. So my next generation gonna be a lot more understanding. That's why I said, my mom just didn't let me go spend the night over people's house. And when I went to college, all my friends happened to be black. So, but it took 2 years ago. TJ Ford took me over somebody's house, a big old mansion. And guess what? We didn't leave and come back to Houston. We spent the night. It's the first time I've ever, and I'm a grown man.
Yeah. I think what you're seeing, especially when you talk about these your son or whatever.
Yeah.
I've always felt this way, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're not born a racist. It's a learned behavior. It's something that's taught.
There you go.
And I agree. I think these young people, it's different now. It is. It's very, very different in a good way. And I think we need to keep progressing, towards that way. But again, I've said it over and over again, the really good teams, programs, businesses, they understand how much you need each other. And that's where we are right now. I mean, we need each other. We need each other in the worst way. We do not have leadership in this country right now. At the national level, as far as the government is concerned.
Right.
And so we need leaders to emerge. We need people to unite us. Mm-hmm. We need things like that. And I think this George Floyd thing is something that's united people in a way that hadn't been seen. And I think what you're seeing as a result of that is the fear of people that understand that this has brought the country together. People see it. Sometimes, the thing that, I always think about is like, what if that person didn't have the camera? Then George Floyd would be another statistic. And so sometimes when you see something that evokes a reaction, a feeling, something that hits someone a little bit different, because we're not just talking about it right now. You saw it. You saw this man standing on this guy's neck for over 9 minutes, calm, with his hands in his pocket. You saw these other 3 guys standing around. You know that everyone's filming. You know that. But still, you don't do anything. You're calm, you're cool, you're collected, because they were conditioned to think, I'm going to get away with it. Nothing's going to happen. And those other 3 guys need to be arrested immediately. And then action needs to happen where there's a conviction. It's not just enough to arrest this one guy. The other 3 need to be arrested, and then there needs to be a conviction. But that's just one example, man, of what goes on around this country. You mentioned, Ahmaud Arbery. I tell you, when I saw that one, it scared me so much because our guys are home. They're in a pandemic. So what are they doing? They're going out running. They're going out working out and things like that. That could have very easily been one of my guys.
Looking back, Harold just mentioned a while ago about it was just recent years that he actually stayed in the house of a white person. Have you experienced at what point in time in your life was that one experience that you had with white people that I mean, some of us grew up with them. Some of us have relatives that are white, and so, but at your age, what was your earliest or most profound teachable moment with a white person?
Yeah, when I was little, one of my really good friends, when I was in elementary school up until we moved, so it was 2nd through 5th grade. We lived in the Southern Pines, Pinehurst area of North Carolina. My dad was still a high school coach at the time. And we lived there. And I had a really my best friend when I was little was this white kid. Mm-hmm. And when we got to like 5th grade, I noticed that he kind of broke away from me. And it really bothered me no matter what I did. And my mom and dad sat me down and told me, like, he's not allowed to be your friend anymore. And I didn't understand it. I mean, I'm in 5th grade, so I'm probably 10 or 11 years old. And at that time, I didn't understand what was happening, why that happened, and things like that. I remember during, around that time also, back then, when we were growing up, kids used to play outside all the time. Like we were outside all day. Yeah. And I remember one time we were, again, living in the Pinehurst, Southern Pines area. My mom and dad told me, like, you can't go outside today. You can't go outside. I'm like, what? We go outside. We have everything planned. Well, there's going to be a Klan march. And they're going to be marched, so you can't. It's dangerous. I didn't know what the Klan was. Mm-hmm. I quickly learned what it was. And I remember having a fear that day, unlike I had ever experienced. So that was really my first time kind of around that age, 4th, 5th grade, where, the first time I really understood it. My parents didn't talk about it, man. They talked about people. I grew up, my grandfather helped integrate North Carolina. He was the first black politician. He was the mayor of his town, owned his own business. He and this white guy helped integrate their town. They were really good friends. And so that's what I grew up around. Yeah. My grandfather was the most positive person. I never heard him say anything negative. And he saw stuff that I read about. My dad saw stuff happen to his father, my grandfather, that I can't imagine, that I've read about. My dad saw his dad being spit on, dogs sicked on him, and things like that. I didn't see those things. I heard about them. As I got older and I started to understand things, I would ask my grandfather about these things. He would tell me then. But still, he was like, look, people are great. You just got to find the right ones. You got to make sure you're around the right ones and surround yourself. And so, again, my family, man, they didn't speak in color or this person's bad or things like that. But as you get older, you start to learn more and you start to understand what's going on in the world.
But he was smart enough to tell you not to go outside.
He was smart enough to tell me not to take my black butt outside, no question. And I was smart enough to listen.
What's your stance on, I noticed like a lot of colleges, and this is, for example, every college has a campus police department. And you notice there aren't, how often do you hear of abuse by those campus police to the students that dwell in the campus housing? Is that, think about that, let that soak in for a second. And with that thought, what's your stance, or do you think it would be better, or we would be served better in our communities if the police, if they policed their own communities?
It's a good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I think there are good cops out there. I do. You know some, I know some. We all know some. I try not to cloud them all based on, what happens with some, but it's hard. I'll be honest with you, it's hard, but that's a tough question. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it was a rough one, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, these are questions that
I know,
that
but
texting me from the Boomer Room, and
I
people
know.
really want to know. I mean, I guess people want to know if people think like they think, because people may have thoughts, and they'll toss it off the wall and see what your response is to certain things, and that's what I think people are doing.
Yeah.
And I read a couple of comments on there, and it's like Dinos Trigonis is from the West Coast. A great discussion. I love the dialogue. Marcus Ebo says, we needed this conversation, and this is what we're trying to do on this
And I'm
platform,
loving it.
is at least provide a way for people to get motivated or get educated enough or get influenced even to go and just have a conversation and have enough tools to have it properly. Because blacks can talk, we can talk to each other about this stuff all day long. We've been talking to each other far too long about it. It's time now to go and educate and let people understand, try to get them to understand. Even if you tell somebody that's white how you feeling, that don't mean they're going to understand how you feel. And so Coach Capel, man, we definitely, this is some great dialogue. Great dialogue. So with that thought in mind, and you guys feel free, we only have room for about 3 more questions for Coach. So you want to get them in, get those in right now. Tremaine asked, will Coach Capel, do you plan to set up a meeting between your campus police department and your players when they come back?
That's something we do anyway. That's something that we do. I think that's something that's important. It's interesting that question came up. My wife is an attorney, and her brother and his wife, they're both attorneys. And we usually get together in the summer and vacation and spend some time together. And my sister-in-law had this idea probably about 4 or 5 years ago of them getting together. She had this business idea of she and her husband getting together and kind of going around to college campuses and talking to student athletes, all of them, but especially black student athletes, as an attorney about what they should do if they're ever pulled over, what their rights are, how they should handle it, because they've handled a lot of cases like that. And so that's something that we're going to look going forward to, maybe perhaps bring an attorney in to talk about it. But we have campus police. We normally have a city cop come in just to talk about different things. Because I do think it's important for our guys to have a relationship with them, for them to have a relationship with our guys, so they see them, so they get to know them. And so hopefully that eliminates maybe a layer of fear, where maybe they're a little bit more comfortable, where they know that they can go and talk to them if there's a problem and things like that. So that's something that we already do.
Now, speaking of the campus police, on your campus, well, I'll put it like this, I'll put it in general. On most college campuses, if a player gets detained by the campus police, do they normally, the officer normally, A, handcuff them and take them to jail and process them, B, handcuff them, take them to jail, to the campus jail, and call their coach, or C, neither one of the above?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer, because, knock on wood, I've never had to deal with that as a head coach or as an assistant when I was at Duke. I can tell you, even back when I played, and since I've been a coach, a lot of the campus police have pretty good relationships with the student athletes at a lot of places. A lot of them really look out for them. They try to help them if they see them in positions or situations that are not good situations. They try to help protect. At a lot of places, some campus police may call the coaching staff, hey, your guy's here, you need to get him out of here. He's at this place, or he's here, and things like that. And so I don't know the answer to that, Jimmy, because I've never been in the position where I've had to deal with that, knock on wood.
Coach, I know we about to get you out of here, but it's burning me. Because you mentioned your grandfather's, well, I know how powerful your dad was and your grandfather. Did your people know Harvey Gantt?
Yeah.
When you were a young guy?
My father-in-law was the first black Speaker of the House in North Carolina. and he's a state senator. He ran for U.S. Senate a few years ago.
So when
But
you
he's
were
still-
young, so what age were you when you knew who Harvey Gantt was?
I think that was during, 90. So I was 90. I was in the 10th grade. So I was probably about, I was 15.
Okay.
90, 91, 92. I think that's when that happened. So I was in high school.
The reason I asked is, I remember them, they mentioned him in the Last Dance doc, and I went and studied the history, and I can't imagine how Michael Jordan said, "Man, Mama, you might know. I don't know the man. The man that did too much in North Carolina history for you not to know him. You might not know him, and hang out with him, but you got to know the accomplishments that he did for Charlotte, and being the first black student at Clemson."
Yeah, his wife, the second black.
The second black, yes. So look, okay, you answered my question, but keep on going. I'm gonna leave it alone.
That last question we have, Coach, is from Michael, and he says, let's hypothetically think that all of the top 100 to 200 African-American recruits of the class of 2021 collectively decide to attend HBCUs. Would you support the idea?
I would support whatever these kids want to do. Look, my parents went to HBCUs. My dad got his first head college coaching job at a HBCU. They both attended Fayetteville State University. My dad was a head coach at Fayetteville State University. My dad was the head coach at North Carolina A&T University. And so the historically black universities run deep in my family. My grandparents on both sides attended historically black universities. My in-laws both went to North Carolina Central University. And so it's something for me and our family that means a lot. And I would support anything these kids want to do. I think they should choose to do whatever it is they want to do that's going to make them happy and that's going to give them the best chance to fulfill whatever dream it is that they want to do. My dad used to always talk about when he coached at Fayetteville State, and he was at Fayetteville State as the head coach for 4 years. He was at A&T for 1 year. And so that was 90. It was 89 to 93, A&T from 93 and 94. And he used to always talk back then, like, imagine what it would be if the top guys went to HBCUs. What would happen? What would happen to the landscape of college athletics on both sides, in football and in basketball? What would happen to the landscape? And so if that's something that kids wanted to do, I would support it. I would encourage it. I would cheer them on and everything like that. Whatever it is they want to do, man, I think they should do it.
Great job.
Hey, Coach, man, thanks a bunch, man. Great
man,
job.
This is for Coach right here. Hold up, Jimmy.
There you go. There you go. Speaking of HBCUs, let me turn my cup this way.
TSU.
Coach, he just showing out why you on the line, Coach. He's just showing out, Coach. He's
You know,
showing out.
but we definitely appreciate it, Coach, man. Thanks so much. Let me
Thank
tell
you,
you
big fella.
you served as therapy
Yes.
today for many of us and the viewers on the Chop Shop. We thank you, and I'm telling you,
Coach,
the
They
people right
messing with you, Coach. Coach, they talking about, why didn't you go to HBCU? Because he went to do, duh. But keep going.
and as I mentioned, I'll leave you with the quote of one of our viewers, Barry. Barry says, "I never really heard Jeff Capel talk or express himself. New respect for him. A fan of Pittsburgh basketball now."
Wow.
See, this is the thing that you never know who's watching, who's willing to receive your words. But we want to thank you, man. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing behind you, man, and keep fighting the good fight and keep changing the lives of these young men out there, man. Jeff Capel, y'all.
I appreciate it.
Basketball.
Hey, man, I'm a big fan of you guys. I follow you. I watch you. So I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Coach.
Big shout out to Coach Showalter. Big fan of his. Great man. Heck of a coach. What he did with the youth group of USA Basketball is absolutely unbelievable. And it's helped every level of basketball in our country, at the high school level, collegiate level, and the pro level. He's been a big part of the change. And so I know you have him on next. Shout out to him, and appreciate you guys having me on.
Wait a minute. That's right. You coach USA Basketball as well.
Yeah.
I did. So before they took it over,
we don't let you introduce Coach Showalter, then before you click off.
Yeah.
Introduce Coach Show. There
so
you
I'll
go.
tell you what he did, seriously, because he built the program.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just teams. I was the head coach of the U18 team in 2010. And we were the first to win the U18 in the Wild, to win the gold. And then after that, they developed a system where they wanted to have a program instead of having coaches. And Coach Showalter, Mike Jones, that group took over the young group.
Yeah.
And Sharman White and that crew.
Yeah.
And I remember I first met Coach Showalter when I was coaching that team in 2010. I think he had the 17 or 6. We scrimmaged each other. And what he was able to do during his time, he built the program, he built the culture. And it helped us. I was fortunate enough, to be a part of the national team in 2014 with the World Cup and the Olympic team in 2016 as part of Coach K's staff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those guys that were a part of that came from his culture. And he did an amazing job, and also cultivating the coaches there. Everyone got better, the players, the coaches that worked with him. And so major respect to him for what he was able to do.
Hey, man.
Thank you,
hey, that's quite an intro right there, man. Thanks, of course.
I see you guys.
Hey, Coach.
For you people out in Pennsylvania, don't forget
red button, Coach.
Today is the primary in Pennsylvania. So if you're watching your fans for the Pittsburgh basketball program, take out the time today to go out and vote in your primary. Ironically, another primary which is taking place today around the country, it's about 8 states that has primaries today. Believe it or not, yes. And another one is, I think, Iowa. And Iowa is the state that our next guest was a gigantic head coach in that state, and that is Coach Don Showalter, who's with USA Men's Basketball, is joining us right now as we continue to convo. Shout out, what's going on, Coach?
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, appreciate you guys, Rob and Jimmy, having me on. It's, what an amazing conversation with Jeff Capel. I mean, it just, I think, Jimmy, you said it was a healing conversation for a lot of people. That was, that's very, very true. So I appreciate Jeff. He's been a part of USA Basketball as well. I got to know Jeff when he was coaching our U18 team, and also he was assistant to Coach K in the Olympic team and the World Cup. So respect goes both ways there for Coach Capel, and I certainly have. He does things the right way, and I really have a lot of respect for him.
Indeed. And Coach, how long have you been with USA Basketball?
Well, that's a good question. I started my first stint with USA Basketball. Jimmy, was in 1998. I coached the Hoop Summit team, which was played in San Antonio during the Final Four that year. We played against a guy that nobody really heard of at that time, floppy-haired guy from Germany by the name of Dirk Nowitzki.
Yes.
And that was Dirk's coming out party for international basketball, because really nobody had really heard or knew much about him. He had played on a club team in Germany, and he was kind of a last-minute addition. He got out of his he talked his club team into coming over. He didn't really know if he wanted to, and of course his longtime trainer that's been with him forever kind of talked him into coming over. Said it'd probably be really good for you, and we did a really good job on him. We held him to 35 points and like 25 pounds. So,
Coach, I got a question, Coach. Didn't Rashard play on your team?
Yes.
Lewis. I was there.
Yeah,
I was
Rashard
there.
was great. Was he a good player? I mean, he was one of those kids who, he's not a kid anymore, obviously, but he was one of those players. He was one of those players that was so fun to coach. Al Jefferson was on that team. So it was a great game, but that was the coming out part. So that's the first event that I coached with USA Basketball.
Wow.
And then from then on, the next year, because of that, I coached in the McDonald's game, which was held in Ames, Iowa. And then I was on some committees and some committees and some coaching staff for that time we had the old festivals. Jimmy, you may remember those, but we had
North,
south, east, west. We brought in 40 players, kind of a mini Olympic type of thing. And of course, 2002 we had LeBron James, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, James Harden, all those festivals, and that was really a tremendous situation for the kids and the players. And then in 2009, they started FIBA started the U16 and U17 competition, which was really good for USA Basketball because we started that. They started the competition for younger players. Up until that time, there was nothing available until about the U18 level. So adding U16 and U17 was great for USA Basketball. It was great for development of our players. Started in 2009, and the U16 is a tournament that they have 1 year, which is a qualification tournament with North and South America. So we have to qualify for the next year's World Cup. And so, unfortunately, the World Cup for this year probably won't be. Nothing's been for sure, but it probably won't be held. Just due to the fact you have 16 teams around the world trying to have a tournament. So I coached in that first one in 2009. There might be some players that you guys remember on that one. Bradley Beal was one of our players. Andre Drummond was on that team. Quinn Cook was on that team. Just to really, we didn't really know much about what we were doing at that time. We had to put some players together, and we've obviously learned a lot more since then. But that was the first go around, and I've been doing that. And then in 2016, I coached high school basketball for 42 years in Iowa. My last stint was at Iowa City High, and I had opportunities to go with USA Basketball full-time basis in their coach development area several times, and just didn't want to give up high school coaching at that time. But that was probably a good time for me to do that, and I still was able to coach the U16 and U17 teams and put those teams together and work with the coaches on that. So that's kind of my timeline. You're probably sorry you asked that, Jimmy, but that was my timeline on USA.
No, that's good, Coach. Coach, I got a question. Being from Iowa, did you? I hate the word discover, because that's where Harrison Barnes came from. Did he come up under your? Did you have anything to do with him in the development stage?
Not really. I grew up in Iowa City, which is the southeast part of the state. He grew up in Ames, Iowa. Ames, right. Actually, Harris, his coach and I were really good friends. He works my camps, but actually Harrison and Doug McDermott were on the same high school team.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, from Ames, Iowa, and what a great team they had. That was yeah. I told their coach, hey, just don't mess that up. Just don't mess it up because you have a great team going on. We had Nick Collison came out of a small high school here in Iowa. He played for Kansas. Kirk Heinrich from out of the Sioux City area. So we've really had a lot of players that kind of were under the radar somewhat until they got to the college level. Marcus Page from North Carolina played in the league I coached in. Yeah, so some really good players that I've had a chance to be a part of in the state of Iowa too.
Now, Coach, first tell me give us your win-loss record since you become head coach of the youth teams in USA Basketball, regardless of age. And also, second part is, there were years back, of course, one of the reasons that they changed the format from the USA Basketball Development Festival, that's what they called it, I think, in Colorado Springs back in the day. They went from that format because if I'm not mistaken, we went through as the pros did as well, where we did not win. And when the people would come in for Hoop Summit and whatnot, and we would get our butts whooped. and that was a narrative that was clouded over and was trying to basically scare the heck out of the country, that all of you aspiring basketball players from USA, these international players are about to take your positions, your scholarships, your jobs, because we can't shoot. We don't know the game of basketball. So now, once again, I go back to the first question. That is, what's your win-loss record? And how, if we don't know how to shoot and how to play, how do we keep kicking their asses year after year around the country, around the world? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm embarrassed to tell you my win-loss record, Jimmy, but we haven't lost a game, 62-0 in our U16, U17, and that has a lot. Obviously, it has a lot to do with a lot of people and great players and putting those players together. So I always say that if you're involved in basketball, you're one of two coaches. You're humble, or you're going to be humbled. And because basketball has a way to humble, I think, all coaches at some point. And so I just got out of it before I was humbled again. So, and then you talk about in 2000, I think it was 2004, and you probably know this too, Rob and Jimmy, but 2004 we finished third in the Olympics. Got a bronze medal in Greece, I think, in the Olympics. 2006, we finished sixth in the World Championship in Indianapolis with a really good set of NBA players. And so I think that started the whole conversation about we really have to do some things different with USA basketball in order to get us on top again. And then that's when Coach K, his first Olympics was 2008. 2009 is when I first came with the U16 level. And then Billy Donovan, if you remember right, he coached the U18 and U19s for about 4 years there too. So we all had kind of the same philosophy, the same basketball philosophy, how to build a team, and it really was good for USA basketball to go from U16 up through the U19 and then the senior men's team with kids that have been coached kind of the same way. We all believed in pressure defense, fast break offense, and just getting that going. So that's kind of what started it in 2008. And then obviously USA basketball has done a much better job since then of kind of getting the players and making the players wanting to play USA basketball. That was something that was a little more difficult at the start because players in our country, we don't play for our country like players from Spain and Germany. So we don't really have that sense of pride for our country. They play for their high schools, they play for their AU teams, but very few of them ever represent their country. And so I think that was a big thing for us. And Coach K did a tremendous job with that too, with the military and what people go through to represent our country in the military. Well, we're going through the same thing to represent our country, but on the basketball court. And so I think that was a big thing for us to really give that pride factor for our young players that this is something really special. And that helped us with the players, and also helped us give that situation where they're playing for something bigger than they are. So.
And so now I want to ask you, Coach, you're coming out of Iowa, 42 years high school coaching career, and of course, being in USA basketball now. Give us one of the first or a couple of the first things that because most of the teams, the vast majority of the basketball teams, it's probably easy if you to count it this way. You probably can count, since you've been there, probably on both hands, the amount of white kids who actually made the final cut on your teams would probably be around about, of all those teams combined, probably been about what, about a dozen?
If that, yeah.
So that means, what are some of the things even at your age that you probably, it took all the way to USA Basketball to learn about Black kids and their culture?
Yeah. That's a thought-provoking question, Jimmy.
Chop shop, man.
Yeah. Just kind of piggyback on what Jeff had said earlier. As you watch what's happening unfolded in our country, if you're really an American, your heart just bleeds for what's just happened. I mean, my best friends are African Americans. Jimmy, BJ Johnson, who you know really well.
BJ.
He's without a doubt, he's one of my best friends. I talked to him over the phone this weekend. Mike Jones from DeMatha, Charmin. They're all my best friends, and so I certainly hurt, and we all do when we watch something that's unfolding in front of our eyes like that, and really you go back to saying coaching African American young players as they're in their stages that they're trying to figure things out. I think that's a part of what USA Basketball really has to, that we've really taken to note is, we're leaders in that world of education. I mean, we're trying to educate players as well on social issues. And I don't know if you guys saw on TV, there was an African American dad, and again, it just made me cry. How he was explaining to his sons that the fact that that they're going to be ridiculed for nothing they do, or they're going to maybe pulled over by police officers for nothing that they do, and that just that makes me think about a lot of our players that are young and growing up, and what they've been through. So as a leader in that, I think we try to do a lot of things from the social issue standpoint that makes them aware of things that they can do and be vocal, and we certainly encourage a platform, and sports has a huge platform for players and kids to make statements and be seen and heard. I loved what you said, Rob, earlier about the moment versus the movement. That was, to me, I wrote that down. I take notes all the time. That's something I wrote down because I think that's something that was really, to me, really, really caught my attention.
And now we got a couple of questions in the boom room. We'll go to, and I think Daryl asked. Well, I asked him to elaborate. I'm waiting for him to elaborate first.
Yeah, me too.
Todd asked, Coach, do you think USA Basketball did a good thing trying to host the high school workouts in front of college coaches?
Well, absolutely. I mean, to me, we're trying to give these players every opportunity they can, and so when they're playing against the best, a lot of these players. Justice Winslow is a great example, Jimmy. And he's one of my favorite all-time players.
Serious?
I love him. And
Coach, you cut him 2 years in a row.
No, just one.
Coach say, I ain't that crazy.
and he will say to this day that had we not cut him, he probably wouldn't be the player he is today. I mean, he tells me that all the time. Yeah. So he came back as a U17 player, made the all-tournament team in the Worlds and stuff. But I think it's good for us to have. We need those kids need to they come in, they're not sure really how good they are. It's interesting because, Jalen Green's going to the G League team now this coming year. I remember when he came in as a 14-year-old. He really had no clue how good he was until he played against the best that we brought in. So I think it's really, we say, we have to get these players out of their comfort zone. They stay in their own little area and play on their own team. Sometimes they don't get out of their comfort zone. They got to get out of their comfort zone to get better. And as I watched Jalen compete, then he found out, what, I'm as good as anybody here. And so that raises their level of confidence. And so I think it's important that the kids need to play against really good competition, as much as they can. And then also to let college coaches see how they perform in that situation, and NBA scouts, because that's where they all want to get to someday.
You got Heather?
No, I'm good. I'm just having fun listening to Coach. It's USA basketball, Coach. Coach,
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Coach. Coach. I'm still want you to do just one thing, Coach. And I know
Okay.
we were handicapped this summer. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know y'all had some events playing at the Final Four, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Next year, Coach, do me a favor. Just send your people out. I want, wherever he's playing at, I want you to go and see how good of a player that Bryce Griggs has gotten from the first time you heard about him and up until now. I don't know if you know, he led his team to the state championship this year as a sophomore. Okay. Matter of fact, one of the only sophomores in Texas to do actual just lead his team in upper divisions. And his ability to be able, I saw so much increase in his IQ and his willing to get down and play defense, because he had a high school coach that told him, if you defend, nobody can beat us. Coach, he went from January the 10th for the rest of the year without losing another game. So I just, in state of Texas, and I know a lot of people might not give you this information. So I'm giving you this information because I don't, you can't say, well, Robert, I didn't know he had gotten this good. So you're hearing from Robert Hatter on the Chop Shop today, man. Yeah. So you don't have to comment on it. I'm just telling you, take them notes down.
With that thought, explain how you build your team.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people think that it's just the players, and not understanding that there's a reason that certain people are not selected, because at certain times, what goes into you creating your team? Is it players or positions or personnel or what?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of them, and Griggs is a really good player. I've seen him play several times as a young player, 8th grade, 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize he was going to transfer, but he's going to play with a Williams kid, I think, at San Ysidro in San Diego. Mm-hmm. A little bit people don't understand too, as FIBA they go all by age. So they have to be born a certain year. So some players that are really good as freshmen are too old for us for U16. And so we have to be real conscious that they have to be born a certain year, and so that does eliminate a lot of players that are really good, and they're 9th graders, or people say, hey, he's only a 9th grader, but he's maybe he's a year or two older than most 9th graders, so it makes him a little bit better player from that. And then Jimmy, we really, when I watch players, Samson Coyote and who took over for BJ, does a great job as well. But we really want to physically see every player that we invite to a training camp. So we invite 80 players through all 4 classes. We want to see them play, and if people say, hey, this kid's really good, we will watch him play at some point on his high school team or his AAU team or somewhere. Because he might be really good in that area, in that region. But if you take a look at comparing him to all over the country, he's probably maybe not be as good as those people in that region think he is, if that makes sense. And then, we look, they have to be versatile. The international game, they have to be, we want players who can play more than one position. They're going to have to be able to guard pick and rolls from a point guard, big pick and roll. So we don't really pick by positions as much as just athletes and how they fit in. And then of course, we look at a lot of things that are, they got to be versatile. They have to be smart, tough players as well. They got to be, they have to be competitive. It's amazing how some players are really good, skilled, but not quite as competitive as we'd like them. And Justice Winslow, I will go back to him as far as there was nobody more competitive than him, because he took what we said as a 16-year-old and made that his MO and came back tremendous in the competitive area. And then, we always look at things like, body language, how they get along with their teammates. I always like to go early and watch how they converse with their coach. I mean, can they look their coach in the eye? Do they communicate well? Those are all really valuable things for us to really take a look at. And then when we get them all together in a training camp situation, it narrows it down a little more. So, but that's a great question, Jimmy. And we certainly take that to heart in that when we invite players, that we know there's a lot of players that are really good that we may not invite based on age-wise, based on the fact that maybe that they don't fit what we want with USA Basketball.
So with that have been said, so does social media activity play any part in selection of you to USA Basketball?
You open up a big can of worms there, but obviously it does. I mean, that social media is part of our whole lives, not only kids that age, but it's part of everybody's life now. So, we go back and look at some social media posts and kind of helps us understand what kind of person that player might be, by what he posts. And unfortunately, that tends to judge a person a little bit, but as does body language. I'll go into a gym and watch a player sit on a bench when he's not playing, and it's not fair, but I get an idea of what that player kind of is like attitude-wise by watching his body language. And so social media is a part of that. And we have social media guidelines that we try and educate the players on. We have on the road, we do things with their social media that doesn't distract them, because when we're playing in Argentina or France or Spain, the hour difference is so much that sometimes they could be on the phone at 3 a.m. the time we're at, and it'd be normal time here. So we have to do a lot of things from that standpoint as well.
That's good.
Now, Coach, here's a good question. This year, you guys had the USA. What was on the docket to take place? What age groups this year that you have? I think in October. Are they still are they still scheduled to resume?
Yeah, good question. FIBA has canceled. Well, we canceled our U18.
Okay.
U18 tournament was canceled, which was a North America, the Americas, which was a qualification for next summer's U19 World Cup. So that's been canceled by FIBA. Our U17 is moved back to August, and officially hasn't been canceled, but it doesn't look good for that one. So both the U17, U18s have been canceled. We didn't have our big training camp at the Final Four like we usually do. We didn't have our July one like we had the last couple of years. So we hope to get in our October one, the first weekend in October over Columbus Day. We hope to get that in for, it may not be as many players as we normally bring in based on the virus, but we hope to get at least some of that in. We'd like to get the players that we're looking at for the Hoop Summit next year, because that's a huge, very big event for us, and then also for the U19s the next summer. So we'd like to get a really good look at those kids again. So hopefully October we'll get that in.
So the kids who were selected and invited to the U17, U18 this fall, if you do not have them, then what happens to them the following year? Do they roll over, or will you select a different crop?
Yeah, good question. Again, well, we start over with U16s. So some of the U17 players could come to our U19 training camp, and the U18 players could come to training camp based on what they do in their seasons and stuff. So there's still some opportunity for them to play next summer. Probably not as much as they would be. The U17 probably won't have as many players go for the U19. We've had a lot of players.
Those are college freshmen as well with the U19.
Some of them, yeah, or high school seniors. So that kind of depends on. We've had guys like Jalen Green. He was a 3-time gold medalist for us. Jalen Suggs, they won 16, 17, and 19s. Jason Tatum was in that group. Josh Jackson, So hopefully a lot of those players will be able to come to training camp next year that missed out this summer. And then we start over with our U16 players, which are our youngest group. They have to be born in 05 or 06 for us to invite them. So we're looking a lot of those players right now as well.
So now, Coach, I had a good one on the docket. I wanted to ask him about. Well, we go to the boom boom room.
What about a shot clock, Coach? Do you think they need a shot clock in high school now? Can you tell the difference in players from state to state who use a shot clock and who don't? Can you tell?
That's a ongoing question, and I'm certainly after having coached international basketball with a 24/7 shot clock. I love it. I think high school. I say let's get out of the dark ages and get a shot clock, 30-second shot clock, 35, but because that really puts. I always say basketball is overcoached and undertaught, and what I mean by that is coaches try to have too much. They try to overcoach the game. So you put in a shot clock and coaching so much international basketball, it really puts the onus on the players to figure things out on the court. And that's really what you want players to do. So rather than overcoach it, we want to teach the game. And so I think a shot clock is one huge advantage for that. And I know there's a lot of, people are going to say, well, the cost factor and everything else that goes into that. But if they truly want to see players develop, then I think the shot clock is a needed thing. And I will go one step further, because I know a lot of the conversation is that, well, it hurts the team that's, the team that may not be as good. And in some ways, it helps the team, because if I'm up by 3 and I have the ball and I don't have a shot clock, what's it going to be? It's going to be trips to the free throw line, because you're going to try to foul me to get the ball back. But now I'm playing with a shot clock and I'm up by 3. I can play good defense and get another possession without having to foul, so it would help the defense at that time. So I think there's a lot of ways that, and I go back to say that when I started coaching international rules, it made me a better coach, made me a much better high school coach because of the rules, the shot clock, and the fact that players cannot call a timeout. You can't. in international basketball. So you can't be rolling around on the floor, diving after loose basketball, calling a timeout. You can't take it down to 10 seconds on the clock and then call a timeout. They got to learn how to play. And I said, when I coached that, it just made me a much better coach when those two rules.
Now, my question I had for you was, you mentioned Jalen Green a while ago, and what's your thought, your opinion, on the new G League initiative, and would it have any bearing or effect on USA basketball moving forward?
Yeah, right now I think it's going to have to play out a little bit. For a guy like Jalen Green, Isaiah Todd's in that mix as well.
Yeah.
But I think for a guy like Jalen Green, he was going to probably go the R.J. Hampton route or something like that. I think it's a better choice for those kids to stay here and play on a G League team where they're getting a nice salary, as opposed to trying to go to China or Australia to play. I think they're going to do better from the playing standpoint, but also just from the developmental standpoint of playing with that G League team. Jalen's one of my all-time. He's right up there on one of my favorites as well, because his work ethic is so good, and he's going to be a great NBA player down the road from what I see right now. But I think that G League, I think it's going to be good. Like I said, I think time will tell. But if it's probably not going to be much effect on us with USA basketball, unless, because guys like Jalen Green probably weren't going to play it. They've kind of extended their play with us, unless down the road they'll be a member of the senior team, which very well could be as well. So. But I think what's going to change that, Jimmy, is if the NBA allows, if they decide to go drafting players right out of high school. So if they start drafting players right out of high school, that may end that G League team, because now guys like Jalen Green will be drafted in the NBA draft as opposed to taking that route in the G League. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, I think.
Now, is there any possibility that USA basketball, with the name, image, likeness conversation, and it's almost a lock that's going to be passed to some with stipulations by the NCAA, but there is any possibility or conversation from the USA basketball angle to possibly, not necessarily if either pay the players or put something in a trust or for the players?
Yeah, I know there's been some discussions on that at a different level, and I really don't feel comfortable going there yet with that from our standpoint, because I just don't know enough about it. But I think that's certainly a possibility of coming down the road. The thing about college players getting paid for commercials and stuff now by media, I think that's like Jeff said, Capel, I think that's a great thing for the players. I'm not sure there's going to be more money in other words, the pot of money is only so much. And so when that money's divvied out by organizations, they're going to divvy that money out to players maybe instead of the university itself or type thing. Because I don't think most companies are going to increase that pot just because the players can get paid. I think that pot's going to still be pretty much the same. They're just going to divvy that pot to different ways. So it may hurt. It may hurt the university in a way a little bit, but help the individual player. So that's just kind of as I look at it.
And Coach, we definitely, we almost at the end of the clock, almost time to land the plane. What are your last thoughts? You touched on it earlier on the situations that's going on around our country right now. from especially as a result of what happened in Minneapolis. And, share those thoughts with us.
Well, I mean, I think, I said earlier that, if you look at that and your heart just doesn't bleed and cry over what happened, you don't have much empathy. And, I reach out to my really, really good friends like BJ and Mike Jones, and just a conversation with them, because I don't, being where I am, I don't really have a handle on what people are going through a lot of times. And so it really made me aware, just the awareness of when I talked to Mike and what he went through as a player growing up too. And so some really great conversation. I think that's, as we said before, the conversations are a way to start the healing process and the way to the way to have this situation stay in the moment, stay in a movement. And I think USA Basketball is kind of in a unique place with this as well, because we bring in players of all races for a common cause, and that common cause represents playing for our country in athletic competition. And so we try to encourage better understanding and help build trust with each other. And so I see USA Basketball doing those things, being at the forefront of some of these young players' lives, and hoping to build that trust and hoping to build relationships that can last forever, and understanding. So.
Yeah, hey man, would definitely appreciate you coming and taking out the time to share your thoughts with us, and also to enlighten us and in details about the makeup of USA Basketball for the high school age players primarily, and how it works for the most part. We definitely have learned a lot, and a lot of the viewers, I'm quite sure as well, can tell by the questions, have learned a lot as well. And once again, man, we definitely thank you, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the gym sometime soon this fall. And hopefully you guys can resume the things for the U17 in August. You said don't look good, but we keep our fingers crossed. But hey, because guess what? They're out there in the street. They're out there in unison, and there's not a whole lot of mask wearing, I'm noticing, in the streets nowadays. And of course, but once again, USA Basketball is the pinnacle for a lot of the young men. They thrive to go and make it and advance to wear that USA across their chest. That is a lot bigger than most people will know. We want to thank you, Coach, once again. Coach John Showalter, guys, USA Basketball. Thank you guys for the questions that you presented to him. And also want to give a thanks out to Jeff Capel, who preceded him in Chop Shop today, with such great dialogue and sincere dialogue it is, in diving into the conversations and giving tips on how to enter that conversation. Everybody is not going to be prepared to engage in the talk when just because you want to talk about it at that particular moment. You guys have to be sincere and have to have understanding and compassion, because this conversation, there are grown folk out there, there are senior citizens out there that have no idea how to engage into the conversation with a level playing at an equal level. Many people are used to talking like this while you're down here, and talking like that in that conversation. Some people are used to talking like this and looking up there at the conversation. But this is something serious, and once again, guys, it's going to take time. But meanwhile, it just goes to show us how much we all have to learn and have to, for us getting better, if we want to make tomorrow a better place or prepare these young people to face what's possibly in store in the real world. Because we shield them so much from the real world, and it's definitely real out there. But anyway, guys, Harold, what you got before we land this plane?
Before we go, Coach, thank you so much, man. I'm so just wanted to put that little bug in your ear. But Jimmy, we got a commercial we got to play. We got a tournament coming up, and Coach and Jeff Capel were so. I mean, when I tell you these guys were so captivating, I didn't talk about
not our tournament.
not your tournament.
You said we got it. You mean
No. We got a tournament coming up. Brian Jolivet got a tournament coming up. Above All Sports Hoops and I want to play their commercial. So, Coach, thank you so much. We're gonna leave on that commercial.
Above All Sports Hoops is where the action's at. www.aboveallsportshoops.com and get registered today.
Yeah, I had to get that in, Coach. I had to get that in. Yeah, but Jimmy, you take us on out of here, Jimmy.
Yeah, man, it's that time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning into the Chop Shop today. We have a couple of college coaches going to join us on tomorrow.
Okay.
And stay tuned and follow us on our social media platforms at Chop Shop HTX. Make sure if you're on the YouTube page right now, give us a thumbs up if you would do so. If you're on the Facebook page, share the show to your timelines, to your friends, to your groups as well. And be sure to take out the time, just a couple of you guys, take out time, go over to the YouTube page and subscribe to it. It's free. There's no gimmicks, no catches. It takes about 8 seconds to subscribe to the YouTube page. And that way it can help with our digital footprint with the Chop Shop. Once again, we're coming back at you on Wednesday, a couple of college coaches, and we'll keep the conversation will continue. And on Thursday, we'll wrap up the week with our grassroots installment of conversations. And we will have Big E, Irvin Davis out of Dallas with the Dallas Showtime. And by popular demand, Book Richardson will return to the Chop Shop for another exclusive conversation. He has not given anyone these type of combos for the length that he provided with the Chop Shop. So you guys wanted him, and he wanted to come back more than you wanted him back, which is not to discount you guys at all. But that's going to finish out the week, and we're going to come back on Monday. Guess what I have confirmed? We have some police officers. Police officers will be joining us because that's the conversation. Another conversation that you guys want to hear from that side of the fence. We got police officers on Monday, and also on Monday we have D. John Lucas will be coming back. Will come back by popular demand, and he can't wait to talk to you guys. Also on Monday, the NBA is expected to have finalized their schedule for the summer, so he's going to share that with us and his thoughts about that, how that ended up unfolding, as well as that. We got stuff with you guys for all month of June on the Chop Shop. All we need you to do is to make sure you lock us in, come back and join us in 22 hours. We'll be back with you on the Chop Shop. It's time to slide down Dino's back and yabba dabba do this thing until tomorrow. Chop Shop, I'm up out of here.
Jim Hicks, Rob Hatter, you are now tuned in to the Chop Shop. I'm Retro. Let's get it. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up. It's live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop.